But as I mentioned a moment ago, what I would like to do first, and I would return later to the speech of the Right Honourable Gentleman and the Right Honourable Lady, what I would like to do first is to refer to some of the extremely important speeches that have been made by representatives of other parties and the smaller parties in the House. I don't know whether the House understands that, of course, it is a House of Commons in which smaller parties have rights, and I don't know why honourable gentlemen opposite should jeer so readily. But certainly it would be most discourteous on my part if I did not reply to many of these speeches. And I refer first of all to the speech of my honourable friend, the member for Belfast West. I believe that all those who heard the speech, and I'm glad to say there were a considerable number of members here present to hear it, I think everyone who heard that speech, whatever his views may be, would have been deeply moved by the speech. I think my honourable friend proved once again what we on this side of the House have always recognised, that he is a man of great courage and great honour, and what he says to this House, I believe this House should always be wise to pay heed to it. I did not agree with everything that he said, of course, about the government and its conduct in Northern Ireland over these years, and I believe that my honourable friend himself, my honourable friend, the member for Belfast West, who is one of my oldest friends in this House, I believe that he too, I believe that when he too comes to review everything he said, he will recognise that there were some unjust comments on what had been done by my honourable friends. Nonetheless, I certainly respect the speech, and of course I would have preferred that my honourable friend could have made a peroration in which he said he was going to come into the lobby with us, but even though that peroration was absent, it doesn't detract in any sense at all from what I believe every member on this side of the House who heard that speech feels about it. To the honourable gentleman, the Right Honourable Gentleman, the member for South Antrim, who also speaks for that part of the United Kingdom in this House, I say to him that, as he is well aware, my Right Honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, made a statement on many of the matters that he touched upon a year ago, or just under a year ago, in this House, and we are pursuing those policies, as we believe, faithfully and properly. And I do not believe there, too, that anyone who reviews what this government has done in this field over this period can doubt the straightforwardness and the honesty with which this government has approached these problems. And I don't believe that those honourable gentlemen who represent Northern Ireland seats on either side of the House can question what we are saying. Now, if I can come to the speech of the Right Honourable Gentleman, the member for Western Isles. And I do believe that he and his party have made an error in the way in which they propose to vote tonight. That is, of course, if they adhere to their apparent resolution. But I must say this to the Right Honourable Gentleman, however misguided he may be in seeking to vote as he proposed in the same lobby with those who are most bitterly opposed to the establishment of a Scottish Assembly, I must say that I think those who listen to him and who've seen what may happen later, they must acknowledge the remarkable allegiance which the Right Honourable Gentleman commands from his followers on that bench. It's one of the wonders of the world. There's been nothing quite like it since the armies of ancient Rome used to march into battle, and it's only now that we've seen the Right Honourable Gentleman in his full imperial guise. Hail Caesar! Those about to die, salute thee. That is the way in which he has led his followers on this occasion. Which brings me also to the Right Honourable Gentleman, the leader of the Liberal Party. And he knows I wouldn't like to miss him out at all. And here I'm sure I'll elicit the support and sympathy of the Right Honourable Lady, because she and I have always shared a common interest in the development of this young man, haven't we? We follow his career together. Yes, we follow. So I'm just wondering, and I'm very glad if the Right Honourable Lady's got something to say on the matter, I'll be happy to give way to her in a second. But I'm just wondering exactly, and I'm sure the whole of the rest of the House and the country would like to know, my Right Honourable friend referred to it in somewhat other terms a little earlier today, what did happen exactly on last Thursday night? I don't want to misconstrue anything. Did she send for him or did he send for her? Or did they just do it by billet doux, carried by... Cupid has already been unmasked. Cupid, who... for one of the first chief whips I've ever seen who can blush. And I say to him, I think he's got every right to blush. Anyone who was responsible for arranging this most grisly of assignations has got a lot to answer for. But that brings me to the Right Honourable Lady, because it is perfectly clear. It is perfectly clear that the Right Honourable Lady, and I've never never in this House or elsewhere, as far as I know, said anything discourteous to her, and I never intend to do so. I do not believe that that is the way in which politics should be conducted. Yes, I believe that. It doesn't mean we can't exchange occasional pleasantries, that's right. And what the Right Honourable Lady has done, and I've seen it, marked it myself, what she is doing today is leading her troops into battle, snugly concealed behind a Scottish nationalist shield, with the boy David holding her hand. It's quite a I must say to the Right Honourable Lady, who, I'd like her to smile for once. I'd like her to smile. I say to the... perhaps I could say to the Right Honourable Lady, I'm even more concerned about the fate of the Right Honourable Gentleman than about her. She can look after herself. But here, the leader of the Liberal Party, I say this in the utmost affection, but he's passed from rising hope to elder statesman without any intervening period whatsoever. And it is in that grave spirit that I welcome him to these debates. Now, there are some. I hope the House will excuse me in referring to some of the speeches made by the representatives of the smaller parties, and I say this with, I hope, without any boasting. I say it partly because I think of the occasionally mischievous attacks that are made on politicians in this House, and sometimes occasionally on myself. I do believe, in fact, especially in a parliament where there is no absolute majority, it is the duty of the leader of the House to be prepared to enter into conversations with representatives of all parties. Yes, it certainly happens. And I say this, what's more, there is not a single spokesman or representative of any smaller party in this House, I'll come to the Right Honourable Lady in a moment, any smaller party in this House who can say that I have misled them at any single occasion in any conversation that I've ever had. And I believe that that is something that assists the House in transacting its business, and I believe that the House of Commons will come to learn that. Now I come to the Right Honourable Lady, if I may, and come to one of the central themes of the speech that she delivered today. She quoted, and perfectly fairly, as book that had been written by a friend of ours on this side of the House, Anthony Crossland, and I hope that she won't mind if I quote from a book that was written recently, published not so long ago, by Reginald Mortling. I don't use this in any taunting term at all, but I do believe that this, what I read to the House now, is a matter of major significance for the House of Commons in deciding about this vote, and also for the country at large in the much more general debate that will take place over coming weeks and months. This is a matter of major significance about the history of our country and what has happened to us over these past 7 or 8 years. What Mr. Mortling wrote was this, and this was his experience in the shadow cabinet, as he said. From the start, there was a tendency in the shadow cabinet to move away from the Heath line of policy further to the right. To this I was totally opposed. In particular, I could not support the arguments of Keith Joseph, who was inclined to say that all we had done in the government of 1970 to 74 was wrong and not true conservatism. I totally disagreed with this, because it seemed to me that Keith was fully entitled to measure himself for a hair shirt if he wanted to, but I was blowed if I could see why he should measure me and Ted at the same time. But then he went on. I'm sorry we haven't got the assistance of the right honourable gentleman on this occasion, but then he went on to say, and this is the important part of it, I read that because it is necessary to read that prelude. I read this, yes. He said, I could not help recalling Selsdon Park and the swing to the right in our policies which occurred then, and how long it had taken in government to get back to the realities of life. I feared the same thing was beginning to happen again. That is the authentic account, I believe, of what happened inside the shadow cabinet when the right honourable lady, certainly out of passionate conviction, led her party back to the Selsdon Park policies. That is the reality of the matter. That is what has happened. That is the reason why the right honourable lady has never been able to succeed in securing a full political, fresh cooperation with the right honourable gentleman, the member for Bexley-Sidcup, because there is a deep gulf still between Selsdon Park Conservatives and those who learnt, in the words of Mr. Mortling, the realities of life. And that is what happened. And it is not my words quoting the realities of life. It is those who had the greatest experience in that 1970-74 government. Now, some of us believe that one of the major purposes that we must have in politics is to try to ensure that our country shall not again have to live through the years 1970 to 74. And what the right honourable lady is proposing, and what is confirmed by what Mr. Mortling said of his experience inside the shadow cabinet, what she is proposing is that we should retread that path again. I say that nothing conceivably more disastrous could happen to our country to that in a whole field of different relations, not only in the field of industrial relations, although that would certainly be bad enough, and although it is the experience in industrial relations which is most branded, maybe, on the public mind, but in most other fields as well, because, of course, it was part of the Selsdon Park policy to abandon any support for British industry as a whole. It was part of the Selsdon Park policy to drive us into the common market on the most disadvantageous terms possible. It was part of the Selsdon Park policy to return to the naked, laissez-faire policies of the right honourable gentleman, the member for North East Leeds. Those are all the policies to which the Right Honourable Lady has led her party. I give her full credit. She does it because she believes in it, of course. And she would, I believe, hardly deny it. Hardly deny it. Or does she going to deny it? Is she going to try and pretend that on this issue she has some special new policy of her own? She hasn't been very successful in explaining to the House today in this debate what is her special policy for dealing with devolution. Because all she's had to offer on that subject, oh yes, we've made the proposal. What the Right Honourable Lady said in reply to my honourable friend, the member for West Lothian, not everyone here was here to hear it, what the Right Honourable Lady said, if I got it right, I don't want to misquote her, yeah, but this is what it added up to. She said what she proposed was talks about talks about talks about talks. That was what she proposed to do about devolution. And I think that's rather complimentary on the whole, because in fact what she proposed is to do nothing whatsoever about it. I understand. Good, says the backbench members of the Conservative Party. I fully understand that. And the honourable gentleman on the very backbenches, he shouts louder than any of them. Of course I know that. And what has happened? There again, what the Right Honourable Lady has done in the field of devolution, and I think she's done it also because she passionately believes it, what she has done is to tear up all the policies that were originally put forward by her party, tear up the policies on which many of them fought the general election, and say now we return to a position where she's not proposing any proposals whatsoever, either for a Scottish Assembly or for any form of devolution or for any form of progress in that direction. Now, I say to the Right Honourable Lady, if that is indeed her course, then it has come quite a big circle. I wouldn't call it full circle, because the Right Honourable Lady was never very much in favour of devolution herself. But what she's done is to tear up the proposals. What she's done is to tear up the proposals which her own party had put forward in the so-called right approach not so many years ago, when she said, but in our view, the Union is more likely to be harmed by doing nothing than by responding to the wish of the people of Scotland for less government from the centre. What the Right Honourable Lady is doing is exactly what she was saying a few years ago she wasn't prepared to do at all. Now, we are not prepared to do that, and we believe over and above the measure that was put through this House as well, over and beyond that, for this House of Commons to say that it was going to wipe that act off the statute book without any proper consideration. We believe that that could inflict very serious injury on the United Kingdom itself, and could indeed inflict very serious injury on the Union itself. We believe that this House of Commons ought to pay respect to that referendum, even if it does not comply with the full requirement of the 40% which was included in the bill. And it was on that basis, that we made our proposal to the Right Honourable Lady. It was on that basis that we made the proposal to the other parties, and if we win this vote of confidence here tonight, we will renew those proposals, and I hope that every section of the House, whatever may have been their preliminary views on the matter, will be prepared to come back and discuss these questions afresh, because otherwise I believe that it is going to leave a real deep gulf and breach, a growing breach in years to come, between the rest of the United Kingdom and Scotland, and I believe that that would be a highly dangerous development. So I hope that the Right Honourable Lady and her party will have second thoughts on that subject as well. But the Right Honourable Lady, of course, in her speech today, sought to not only to make us forget what had happened in the period in her own shadow cabinet period, and not only to make us forget what had happened perhaps in the years of the previous Conservative government between 70 and 74, she was also seeking, as I understand it, to give a very peculiar impression of the kind of legacy which was left to the Labour government that came in 1974 from the Conservative Party of that time. It's a very interesting thing to notice the matters that they don't mention at all. Not a single word about the balance of payments situation. I don't know whether the Right Honourable Lady regards that as a matter of any significance. I don't know whether she regards as any significance the fact that the deficit in our balance of payments in the year when she and her friends left office was the biggest deficit we'd ever had in our history by far, even bigger than the deficit which the Tory party had left us in 1964. But of course, all that she wants to be wiped away from the public memory. She wants to have wiped away from the public memory also what were the real figures of what was the rate of inflation when they went out, and the rising rate of inflation once more. There was a rate of inflation of, 14% in February, with 15% and more in the pipeline, a prophecy then of 20. We've heard the old parrot cry come from all the honourable and right honourable parrots before, and I dare say they'll do it again. And we'll hear it all through the general election. But it won't alter the fact that they left us a rising rate of inflation, zooming upwards with threshold payments inbuilt to make the rate of inflation continue upwards. That's what they left us, and what we have done is to bring down the rate to less than half of what it was when the Right Honourable Lady and her friends were put out of office before. So that's another of the major aspects of what has occurred that they wish to leave out of the record. But of course, worst of all, perhaps, I believe, the greatest disservice which the Right Honourable Lady does to the country in the way she presents the argument is that she seeks to pretend that all the burdens and problems that we have had, for example, in these past 4 years to contend with, and nobody can say that the storm has not been a fierce one. Yes, are there? There's no storm blowing outside, you see. So ignorant are they of the outside world, they think there's only a storm here in Britain. Yeah. So incompetent and ill-equipped are they to try and put things right, they don't even trouble to know what's happening in the other parts of the world. And when my right honourable friend goes to conferences to meet the leaders of the United States and Japan and elsewhere, all the Right Honourable Lady and her friends can do in this House of Commons is to jeer and to sneer as if those were matters of no significance whatsoever. Moreover, what she does something worse than that. She comes to this House and says that in some way or other this country has been demeaned in the councils of the world during these past 4 years. There's not a shred of basis. There's not a shred of basis for it. There's no basis for it. That's not what the leaders of the other countries say. It's only what the leader of the opposition in this country says. That's not what the other countries say. That's not what they've said about the policies that we have advocated at these summit meetings. So why doesn't the Right Honourable Lady say whether she agrees or disagrees with the propositions we've put at those summit meetings? It's because she wishes to mislead the people of this country to think that there's only a problem here. There's no problem in the wider world altogether. Well, we've had this from the Conservative Party on many occasions before. And of course, what has happened so often in our history, and I believe it is going to happen again in the coming months when the public goes to the polls to decide the issue, what is going to happen is the argument has to be lifted from the levels where the Right Honourable Lady would have them. The argument has to be lifted to the levels of seeing what is happening to our country as a whole. And anyone who looks to see it can see a very different story from the one painted by the Right Honourable Lady today. It is not the case that we have failed to grapple with all these problems in the past 4 years. Of course, we've started to deal with them. We've started to deal with them even with the limited power that we've had in this House of Commons. We started to deal with them. We have also, despite all the storms, despite all the setbacks, despite all the hardships, we've carried out major programs of social reform at the same time. And it has been because we were determined to carry out those social changes, those social reforms, those improvements in the social services, determined to carry them out despite all the difficulties, determined to share better the wealth produced by this country, even if that wealth was not as great as we wanted it. It's because we've been determined to do that that we've been able to weather the storm and to prepare for other times. So what will happen? What will once again be the choice at the next election is not so dissimilar from the choice this country had to make in 1945, or even, if I may say, in 1940, when a Labour Party had to come to the rescue of the country then. It was on the notion of the Labour Party in this House of Commons that we threw out the Chamberlain government in 1940. It was thanks to the Labour Party that Churchill ever got a chance to serve the country in the war years, thanks to the Labour Party. Two-thirds of the Conservative Party at that time voted for the same reactionary policies that some of them they vote for tonight. And it is in the most difficult and painful moments of our history sometimes that this country of ours has turned to the Labour Party for salvation, and they've never turned in vain so far. We saved the country in 1940. We saved the country again in 1945. We set out to rescue the country from what was left of it in 1974, and here again in 1979 we shall do the same. I know that
Order! Order! I can't hear what the right honourable gentleman
most of by the honourable gentleman. I don't know why they said it's a shameful. It's a bit. I think it's high time that the Tory party recovered some sense of humour, even if they've lost everything else. They haven't done very well in the debate. I think they should have I think that they really ought to have had plenty of practice of laughing at themselves over these recent years, and I think they should make a better effort on this occasion. But I repeat, Mr. Speaker, and I repeat, I hope, in your hearing, that what is going to happen over these coming weeks, coming months, is, of course, the British people are going to make the decision, and if the British... And if this debate is any test, and if argument counts for anything, and if overwhelming support from these benches counts for much as well, then of course it's going to be not only a very good election, but a thumping Labour majority at the end. We are quite prepared to have it, but the Conservative Party has always had the idea, because they think that they were born to rule, although I would have thought that the country has been cured of that impression long since. But they've always thought everything must be decided according to the desires and the whims of the Conservative Central Office. Everything else is unpatriotic. Well, we say this House of Commons should decide when the election takes place, and the people will decide which government we are going to have to follow this government. We believe that once the record is fully put to the country, once we have the full debate, we believe we will come back here with the real majority that a Labour government requires to govern for the next 5 years ahead.
that this House has no confidence in Her Majesty's government. As many as are of that opinion say aye. The contrary, no. No!